A whistleblower has told ITV Calendar how a former senior West Yorkshire Police Officer failed to investigate child grooming in Bradford after he reported evidence from a 3-month operation.
John Pykos was working for a human trafficking charity in 2010 when he says he provided evidence of girls in a children's home being sexually abused by older men to the officer, but says no action was taken.
The Shadow Home Secretary has now written to the National Crime Agency calling for the officer to be investigated after John reported his experience. Amelia Beckett has been speaking to him.
Words like cover-up aren't words that I'd use often, but I believe that there was a deliberate attempt to cover over this problem.
For 3 months, John Pykos was witness to what he believed was child grooming at a children's home in Bradford. A retired police officer, he was working for an anti-trafficking charity. And in 2009, after hearing reports of children going missing from children's homes, began surveilling one in the city.
One of the windows on the front of the house would be open, and out of the upstairs window would hang the head of a young girl, 13, 14, something like that. And she'd be on her phone and she'd be watching down the road, and a car would flash its headlights, and a few minutes later she'd walk out as if she was going for a stroll, and then she'd go over to this location where the vehicle had gone, and then you'd see that car drive off.
But as the surveillance continued, John says it became clear there was a disturbing pattern. Older men, largely of South Asian heritage, were not just picking up these girls, they were sexually abusing them. It was then he met with other charities and police officers to report what was happening.
I briefed them all about what happened, and there was a very awkward silence in the room. And then one of the people representing the national charity said to me, well, everybody knows that that's what happens in children's homes. It goes on up and down the country. Well, for the second time in a very short space of time, I was absolutely stunned, because, you know, that's an admission that demanded some kind of, challenge.
John says he was then contacted by a senior police officer at West Yorkshire Police who he used to work with. He believed he would finally take the issue seriously, but was shocked to hear his response.
He said, don't you see how difficult things have been and how much effort we've put in to build racial harmony in this city, and the problems that we've gone through, and your actions are likely to, to cause it all to burn to the ground. And this is about child sexual abuse. It's not about racial tension. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he said, can't you just go away? Leave us alone.
John has since reported this to the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp, who has now written to the National Crime Agency, calling for them to investigate the police officer. The NCA has confirmed the Director General has received the letter. John says he deeply regrets the years he didn't push for action to be taken. He only hopes speaking up now will encourage others to do the same.
It's certainly a shocking allegation there, and Amelia joins us now in the studio. Amelia, this is yet another whistleblower that you've spoken to in the last month, claiming there's been a cover-up taking place in Bradford. What have West Yorkshire Police had to say about this?
Well, all they told us is that they are aware of this letter that Chris Philp has written, and they say that he's made no formal report to them themselves, and so would urge him to get in touch. Chris Philp told us he doesn't believe that West Yorkshire should be investigating themselves on this matter. But as you say, this is the second whistleblower now in the last month who's come forward, making claims that senior figures in Bradford knew that child exploitation was going on and did nothing about it, and that adds pressure to calls for an inquiry there. But this is an issue which has been politicised by all the major parties, and so earlier we spoke to Chris Philp and we asked him why he's pushing for this now when his party was in power for 14 years.
Well, the Conservatives held, of course, the Jay inquiry. They held the original Rotherham inquiry. They set up a grooming gangs task force that made...
But no grooming gangs inquiry.
But they also, the grooming gangs task force made 550 arrests in its first year. But now we know this was systematically covered up by people in positions of authority. They need to be held to account. They need to be prosecuted.
Well, the government says that it's in the final stages of appointing its chair for that inquiry, and Bradford Council says it's ready and willing to participate. But with more testimony like John's coming forward, pressure really is mounting to ensure that an inquiry is held there and those who did nothing are held to account.
Amelia, thank you very much. Amelia Beckett reporting.